Hi, I'm Bernardo Semakay and I'm here to report about surface water hydrology and also its subtopics like rainfall and rainfall abstraction. First things first, let's define what is a surface water hydrology. It is the study of surface water movement and the surface water distribution. It means on how the water moves through the surface and also how it is being distributed in each part of it. If it is a through a body of water or through a vegetation, trees like that. Also, it considers the layout of a watershed. What does it mean? It depends on the layout of a watershed on how it will move or distribute the surface water. Also, is it important? Yes, it is because it depends on the how it will move for us to know if the water is easily accessible or not. Also for the irrigation for plants, trees, and other animals. Next topic is the rainfall. Let's define what is a rainfall. It is the amount of precipitation in the form of rain that descends onto the surface of Earth, whether it be land or a body of water. It's self-explanatory. There's nothing much to explain about it. But rainfall is measured by using a rain gauge. This is what a rain gauge would looks like. Now we are done defining what is rainfall. Now we define what is rainfall abstraction. It is a term used to describe the amount of rainfall that does not turn into a runoff. For those who doesn't know what is a runoff is nothing more than a water running off the land surface. Here's the illustration of what is a runoff. There are numerous processes that may intercept rainfall. Some never reaches the ground. Instead, they're being intercepted by a vegetation or like a tree or a plant. Some are being evaporated back to the atmosphere. Of the rainfall that reaches the ground, some are infiltrated to the soil. Some are like in a pond or a puddle with no outlet. And as I researched about it, there are six processes or like a type of rainfall abstractions. First is the interception. Next is the evaporation. Next, third one is the transpiration. The fourth one, the depression storage. Next is the detention storage. And lastly, the infiltration. The first rainfall abstraction is the interception. It defines the rainfall loss due to a vegetation or trees or like a plant. Also, it could be in a building. Interception loss or the rain that's being intercepted is high at the beginning of a rainfall, but it gradually decreases over time. Let's put it in a example on to further explain it. Let's say you're going to take a shelter under a tree, and as soon as it starts to rain, the first moment or the first part of the rain, you will not easily get wet because, as it states, the interception loss or the rainfall that's being intercepted is high during or at the beginning of a rainfall, but it gradually decreases over time. As soon as time passes by, you'll get wet. That's why the interception loss is already low. The next rainfall abstraction is the evaporation. I'm sure you're familiar with it. It's a process that turns the liquid into a vapor from the water surfaces like rivers, reservoirs, lakes, channels, etc. And it goes back to the atmosphere. Here's a little or a clip that explains what is a evaporation.
Scientists have proven that the water bodies like oceans, sea, lakes, and rivers provide approximately 90% of the moisture in the atmosphere via evaporation. Evaporation is an important part of the water cycle. Heat from the sun empowers the process of evaporation. It absorbs moisture from soil as well as the oceans and lakes. The water level will decrease as it is exposed to the solar energy. Although the level of water depreciates due to evaporation, the escaped water molecules do not vanish. They stay in the atmosphere, affecting the amount of moisture in the air. Areas with high temperatures and large water bodies are usually very humid due to this. Once water evaporates, it also helps in formation of clouds. Then the clouds release the moisture as snow or rain. The liquid water drops falls to earth again to be evaporated. The same cycle starts all over again and the process continues.
The next rainfall abstraction is the transpiration. Another familiar term, just like the evaporation that comes from the hydrologic cycle. It defines as the water vapor that comes from the plant leaves. And also it is the transfer of soil moisture from the soil to the atmosphere. And here's the little clip I give for you guys to further explain how transpiration works.
Transpiration in plants. We know that roots absorb water and minerals from the soil. But most of the water absorbed is lost in the form of water vapor into the air. This process is called transpiration. Let's learn about how transpiration takes place in plants. In plants, the water required is absorbed by the roots from the soil with the help of root hairs by a process called osmosis. The water is further transported upwards through the stems to the leaves through xylem, which acts as a pipeline. Xylem cells have thick walls. Water then enters in mesophyll cell through stomata. Stomata are openings on the leaf surface through which transpiration takes place. The stomata are surrounded by guard cells which help the stomata to open and close. Transpiration takes place during daytime when the stomata are open.
The next rainfall abstraction is the depression storage. It refers to a small low points of undulating terrain or a uneven land surface that can store a precipitation that otherwise would become a runoff. It's either removed by infiltration by ground or evaporation. The next rainfall abstraction is somewhat similar to depression storage, and it's called the detention storage. The detention storage is a temporary storage, but when a precipitation occurs for a longer duration and at a rate greater than the rate of infiltration, some water is collected in the surface of the earth and at a certain depth. The difference between these two is the depression storage is somewhat like, it's not, I would say, a permanent, but a longer duration than the detention storage, which is a temporary storage. Also, some books, some have research is depression and detention storage are alike. It's somewhat similar to a puddle or a pond. They're being classified as that. detention storage or a depression storage, because it refers to a storage that can store a precipitation, while the detention is like depends on the rate of the infiltration. The last but not the least rainfall abstraction is called the infiltration. It's being discussed in the other types of rainfall abstractions, and it defines as it takes place as part of the rain percolates through the soil. The rate of infiltrations depends on the soil type. If the soil is too dry, the rate of infiltration is much greater. While if it's too wet, the rate of infiltration is too low or less than its normal how it used to be. Next is the slope. Next is the vegetation. If there are too many vegetation around the soil, it's much more rate of infiltration will gonna be. Soil moisture content, same as the soil type. If it's the soil moisture is higher, then the rate of infiltration is going to be less. Also, the temperature, same as if it's too hot, the rate of infiltration is greater. Then next is the precipitation intensity. It relates to the detention storage, as I defined a while ago, that if the precipitation intensity is much more greater than the rate of infiltration, so that's why it has a temporary or a detention storage here. So that's all. I hope you have learned what I reported, and the other subtopics for surface water hydrology is gonna be reported another reporter. So thank you and good day.